Hey everybody, welcome back to Cinema Trip Reviews. I'm Wyatt. This week I got Evan with me. We are
Hello.
talking about James Wan's The Conjuring. Evan, you have not seen this movie. I am so surprised you haven't seen this movie leading up to this
I
review.
am not surprised. I've seen like 10 horror movies in my life. So we're trying to get through some, and this is one that Brittany wanted to watch. So it's like, all right,
I was
we're gonna watch.
excited that you said you were gonna watch it because it's definitely one of the better horror movies that have come out recently. It came out in 2013. The director is James Wan. He's a pretty big director now. I mean, he's like one of his first movie that made him big was Saw. He's the one that
Oh,
made the
okay.
original short film of Saw. They got it picked up. They made the movie on like a shoestring budget, pretty much. Became
Hmm.
this huge phenomenon. You saw it. How many movies they just released the new one here with Chris Rock. But and then he goes on makes Insidious, and
Mm.
Insidious, that spawned a whole series as well. And then Insidious came out right around the time Conjuring did in
Yeah.
2013, and now The Conjuring is a huge phenomenon as well. It's another series. So I mean, it seems like every time James Wan dips his hand into something, it's always
He
turning
creates a
into a
universe.
universe of some sort. And I mean, The Conjuring, it spawned a ton of spin-offs. Like they're still creating them. The third
Hmm.
Conjuring just came out here a couple weeks ago. So I mean, we hop right into it, man. Like, what were your overall first impressions of this movie?
My overall first impression. So, like I said earlier, I'm not really a big horror buff, so I'm trying to watch more, and I feel like I'm kind of spoiling myself or setting myself up for a bad time because I'm watching some good ones. Like I
Hmm.
just watched Hereditary for the first time,
Yeah,
and now I
that's a
watched this
favorite of
movie.
mine.
I
Yeah.
know. It was really good. So, I mean, my overall impressions, and I told you like right after I was done with it, I liked how it was very consistent. There was a nice beginning, middle, end. My biggest thing, and I think I said, no, I didn't say this. I said it on Squad Pod. My biggest thing with horror movies is I usually hate how they end.
Yeah.
They always leave this like stupid ending that's either open ended or there's no like it doesn't make sense. But in the theme of this movie, you're already kind of like introduced like these people they ghost hunters. They're not ghost hunters, but like they're a demonologist.
Yeah.
So they talk about an exorcism. It's mentioned in the beginning of the movie. You kind of know where it's going, but it's not like completely what you think it's going to be. So it
Yeah.
definitely it keeps itself in line in a good way. So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this is definitely the best one of all of the Conjuring series. I mean, I think in general, I mean, this is probably the best movie that James Wan has like. I'd say it's the more like the most perfect movie he's created. Where like what you're saying, it doesn't really have any lulls to it. It's paced really well. I
Yeah.
mean, it takes you to the next step pretty quickly. And it doesn't overstay its welcome at all. It's like just under 2 hours, whereas like the other
Hmm.
ones, they're kind of around 2.5 hours.
You said about how the second one's kind of a slog at
The second
times.
one is quite of a slog at times, but like what you were saying with horror movies, how they kind of end with either like, oh, it's a cliffhanger ending, or like, oh, there's going to be a second one, or else it just
Yeah.
falls flat. It seems like The Conjuring, at least the main movies, I haven't seen too many of the spin-offs, but they're very good at just wrapping up a story and kind of
Hmm.
like, because it's like the story of Ed and Lorraine Warren. Each movie is pretty much just going to be their next case.
Yeah.
It's not going to really be a continuation from the previous movie.
So it's like
Um,
case closed. So
yeah, so the first thing I really liked about this movie is it's very reminiscent of old school horror movies. Like, I mean,
okay.
if you, I don't know if you ever seen the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Brittany says I have because we just talked about this other. I don't remember watching it, but apparently I have seen it. So
Yeah, I mean that's one of my favorite horror movies as well. It's like every time you watch it, you feel like you need a shower afterwards. It's so like grimy and dirty. It feels so real.
yeah.
But the beginning of that, it starts kind of how, I mean, after the Annabelle stuff in the beginning of
Yeah.
this movie, they kind of go through the story of Annabelle with the doll. The two teenagers that are living together, whatever, have the doll. They try to throw it away.
Yeah. Annabelle has this presence because I know they talk about it when I know the movie starts off with talking about the Annabelle case in particular,
Yeah,
and
and
then it
they're
then
the
it
pounding on the door and stuff at night when they're sleeping.
Hmm.
and all this, and then they try to throw the doll away and it comes back.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, you're right. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was the two teenage girls. Yeah,
yeah, that's
they
how the
throw her in the
movie opens
dumpster.
up. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
okay.
what the
Yeah.
point I was trying to get with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre after that, where it kind of gives you the opening, like, oh, this is the little mini story before the actual main
Hmm.
movie. It goes into like a yellow, slow moving like credits explaining like Ed and
Yeah.
Lorraine Warren are like these paranormal
Hmm.
investigators. She's a medium, all this. And that's very
Yeah.
reminiscent of like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They have the same thing at the beginning of that where it's like the
Okay.
story you're about to see is based on a true story, such and such and such. And then it's like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But like with the
Yeah.
Conjuring, it just rolls up the big ass Conjuring letters, like the title card right up in the middle of the
Hmm.
screen. The blares music at you or whatever.
That the whole based on a true story is probably my biggest complaint with the movie.
Yeah, I mean, it is based on true characters. It's based on Ed and Lorraine Warren, who
Yes,
were real people,
it
who
is based on their true story.
true story. It's based on and their encounters with different paranormal and haunted houses. Apparently, they dealt with the Amityville case,
Yeah.
but it seems to me and a lot of other people that a lot of it is kind of BS. But I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's
But
something else you
you
can get
don't watch a
into.
horror movie thinking like this is good. This is definitely real. Like I mean, there are a few out there, but come on, for the most part, there's some sort of supernatural element to it. I kind of appreciate it, but then at the same time, it's like, all right, it's not real. But the movie does it does feel like it grounds itself in reality. It's not like it doesn't feel like there's something supernatural about it because there's a lot of people out there, and it's kind of almost accepted that demons could exist and exorcisms could happen. So like, it does kind of have this like almost real feel to it. I
Yeah,
mean, it's not, but
I choose
feels a
every
little.
time I watch because I mainly watch just like the main ones, the 1, 2, and 3.
Hmm.
But every time I go into that and any movie that says it's based on a true story, I just block that out of my mind. I don't even think about it.
It just doesn't happen.
No, because it's better for me just to like just sit down and enjoy them. But I mean, Ed and Lorraine Warren are based on real people. Apparently, this is a real case. Technically, that they have real case.
Yeah.
Um, but Ed and Lorraine Warren are one of the best parts of the movie. They're great actors and the best part of the series. Like they're great throughout the whole thing. I mean, the opinions on the movies differ, but they're pretty much a main factor where they're constantly good throughout the whole series. I don't know if you've seen him in any other movies. Patrick Wilson, he played like Night Owl in Watchmen. I don't ever seen
Mm.
Watchmen.
No, I haven't seen Watchmen.
He's
No.
actually also in Insidious, James Wan,
Oh,
other
okay.
horror movie, which possibly maybe
So,
we'll review at some point. Then you got the family that moves into the house. Feels very 70s ish. They're playing the
yeah.
old school 70s music throughout the whole thing. They're moving in, the cool camera angles. It's very old
Actually,
school.
one of my notes, because I wrote like two notes before I just stopped. The first one I wrote was the house looks like shit.
Yeah.
That was the first thing. Like I just thought it was funny that like they were moving into this house, and I'm like, they didn't like paint it or something before they moved in, or like they're just moving in like as is. Like this house is dirty and musty, and they're just like, we're just gonna put our stuff right on top of it.
Yeah, but you gotta think it
But
was like in the 70s or whatever, and then on top of that, it was a house that like it was so cheap because there was a murder in it and like multiple murder, so
yeah,
like
and
nobody was
they do
touching it.
explain that later how it was like a foreclosed home they bought from the bank for dirt cheap. Like
Yeah,
yeah, it makes sense now that when after I wrote that, it does make sense that yeah,
yeah,
that's why.
and I mean, you got the dad who's played Ron Livingston, who's famous for like Office Space. He was in like Mike Judge's movie, like Mike Judge who created King of the Hill. Has a movie
Yeah.
called Office Space, which is pretty popular. He's like the main character in that. Good movie. And then you got Lily Taylor, who's his wife. I only really know her from High Fidelity. She's in that movie,
Yeah.
and that's a great movie as well, though. But they move in with all their kids. They have a lot of kids.
Yeah, all
into this big
girls,
ass
like
house, and like what you were saying, it kind of it doesn't take long to adjust. Like shit kind of starts popping off, like the first
night
night.
one.
Yeah, night one. Because I mean, he's the father is a truck driver. He ends up like going on business or whatever,
Yeah.
and which leaves the wife and the girls in this big, huge house. I mean, it's the 70s. There's really like not much. There's no technology really, so there's not much
Yeah.
noise. It's silent at night, so that's already kind of a spooky atmosphere. Sets the
Yeah.
tone.
First thing that happens is, and it's right before the second thing, the wife notices that the clock stopped.
The clock
They all
stopped.
stopped at 3:07,
Yes.
and then right after that, they find the dog dead. And that to
Yes.
me would be
And
like,
they hint
nope,
at that there's something wrong, because as soon as they get to the house, the dog
the
doesn't
dog
want to
doesn't want to go
doesn't
in.
want to go in, and then it stays outside and just barks
Yeah,
the
but of
whole
course, like
time.
it's the 70s, so they're just like, I left him on a chain outside in the middle of the woods. He's fine.
Yeah, and I mean,
He's
they're not in like a development. They're kind of, it seems like the house out in the middle of nowhere, so they're fine with that. It is what it is.
Yeah, he won't get eaten by a bear on this chain. It's fine. Like obviously they woke up to the dog dead. Like come on. But it wasn't a bear, obviously it was.
Yes, but they do.
Yeah.
They start experiencing the clock stopping, and then the children introduce you to like hide and go clap, where they play pretty much hide and go seek, and like the person that's trying to find everybody's blindfolded, and they get like the people hiding have to give them a clap to kind of give them a hint where they're at, and that's where like they're playing. I think it's during the day even they're playing it.
It's
and
like
then, like,
it's like the first day or first week or so. Yeah, they're playing that game, and then they fall through the cellar. I think I remember they find it accidentally, like something. There's like a board that breaks or something.
Yeah.
And they find that there's a whole cellar down there.
Yeah, there's a whole cellar down there, and they go down. They check it out.
Dude goes down with one match for a light.
Yeah,
like,
right.
No.
Right. And there's gonna be some trouble in that cellar.
Exactly. Like that's exactly what I'll be like. I'm going down there first thing in the morning. It's gonna wait. We're gonna lock this door up and not let anything out of it.
And then like they play it. They play that same game. Like I think the next day it's just the mom and the little girl that are playing it. And like she's trying to find her, and then it leads her into the room with the big wardrobe. And you even see the hands come out and clap, and you're like, oh shit, what's going on? And then she goes over, nothing behind it. And I mean that's what's great about this, where like the other ones they're not, I don't think they're as subtle with that kind of stuff. They're not, it's a lot of jump scares and a lot of like, all right, something's gonna jump out here, and then like blast you with music. Whereas this, it's like there's like no music when that's happening.
Except the one time it does blast you, and it's your favorite part.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, of course, that's famous with a lot of James Wan's horror movies. Is like the jump scare. Other than like Saw, there's no really like jump scares in that. That's just like torture porn.
Yeah,
but
really.
He's famous for like the jump scares in his movies. Whereas this one, there are jump scares, but a lot of it, there's a lot of like tension. And a lot of parts where there's no music, which makes it even scarier and builds the tension and builds the atmosphere. And that's one of them, man. Because I mean, it's during the daytime too, and you like see those hands come out of the wardrobe, and that's pretty creepy. And she goes and opens, and no one's there. Starts waking up with like little like marks on her and bruises.
Yeah, the mom wakes up with bruises, and then of course like the one little girl keeps getting pulled in the middle of the night. And then the one girl sleepwalking and banging her head on
the and it's like, what is going on here? And dude, if I remember, I think it's like the mom walking around, like she heard something in the middle of the night, and then that's whenever like all the pictures just drop off the wall, and that makes
it's funny because I think I told you this is where I was like, the movie has a nice slow build up, and then all of a sudden it went from like
just like
first
these
act
little
to second
things
act,
at first,
like,
whereas like normally movies will start with like little things like that, but like these are little things, but at the same time they're giving you more than you would normally get. Where like like where you get like Paranormal Activity, like a cover moved or something moved in the middle of the night, whereas like this, you see like hands coming out of the wardrobe and stuff. And
I think like a normal movie, the next natural progression would have been like a picture fell off the wall. And in this, they were just like,
nope, dropping all off the walls.
They're all down. And then it escalates to the point where like right then and there, they're like, okay, now we got to do something about this because.
Yeah. And then I think that's like the point of no return is whenever she goes down into the basement because she's hearing the clapping. That's what she's investigating. The clap. She just hears it in the middle of the night, and she goes to investigate. Goes down in the basement with a match, like what you're saying, just with a match. It goes out. She lights another match. And then like the ball comes out and it starts bouncing, and she like runs upstairs, can't get out, and then she lights another match, and then like the hands come out from behind her. Like, And that was one that was like everybody knew it was there because I don't know if you remember at the time that was in the trailers that came out. And that was like
I don't remember
the big
trailers
focal
at all.
point of the like seller of the movie was like that was the scare that was in the trailer. And I feel like, man, if they didn't throw that in the trailer, that would have been such a good scare.
See, like, it was really good for me because I knew something was about to happen, but I didn't know about that. So
Yeah.
that was actually really nice because like the hands just come out and just
Yeah, and I think that's from the point where she starts experiencing, like, she's getting the mark. She's starting to be like show
yeah.
signs of possession, and that's when she like hunts down the Warrens. She goes to like one of their seminars that they're having, explaining paranormal activity and stuff. They come over to investigate the house. They just believe it's like they just say that like the most common reason is like old pipes or whatever in the
You know,
middle of the
and
night.
I can actually appreciate that because as as someone who is a medium, they are obviously trying to make a sale or do something whenever they can. So I actually kind of appreciated that they included that in the movie that
They weren't
they at least would
immediately like,
say
you need to get out of this house, like something like,
exactly.
yeah,
That's how I
they
would
were
see
like
it. Like a
very
snake oil
like,
salesman, they're just like, "Oh, you definitely got demons."
like,
But
I don't
they
even know if we
actually
should be here. Like, we should
yeah,
probably get out of here.
but like, they were at least like usually it's not really demons. Like, at least it gave them credibility in the movie, at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I'm sure they did that for a reason. As soon like they walk in, he's the one that's pretty skeptical, Ed Warren. He's the one to say like explaining like, yeah, this is pretty much it's normally nothing. It's normally
Yeah.
nothing you have to worry
But
about.
then, of course, like,
You see
Lorraine
her
was like,
like in the background,
she
she's kind
walks
of
in with the bad juju right away.
exactly. She knows there's something up right away. And then like she kind of explains it later whenever like Ed kind of gets it out of her. Like there's something
Yeah.
she's hiding. And then she kind of explains like from the very moment like she saw something that was attached to the
There was like
mom
a
and the
dark
kids.
aura around like the whole family and
Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's whenever things start getting real crazy. Whenever
Hmm.
Ed and Lorraine Warren start staying at the house with them, and which is one of my, I think I've seen it in a movie before, but they do it really well in this one with the when she's hanging up the bed sheets outside, and she
Oh,
looks
yeah.
up and she sees like the mom in the window or whatever, and then she disappears. And then
Hmm.
she's like doing, and then like the wind blows a sheet off of the line, and it just like
Okay. Yeah.
forms around a ghost, and then it just disappears. And I feel
Hmm.
like that was such a good effect. It is still
Yeah.
like every time I'm seeing it, I'm like, damn, that is a good shot. One of the most tension filled moments, I think, is what you were saying with the moment with one of the little girls that wakes up in the middle of the
Yes.
night.
That is probably that was probably the scariest part of it because she's getting pulled and everything, and then
Yeah, she's like,
uh
"Stop yanking my foot." She's like,
and she's
"I'm
just like,
sleeping. What do you
yeah.
mean? I'm not yanking your foot."
So she checks under her bed. Of course, it's like, no, don't look under the bed. Like
Yeah.
that's my cat just jumped from like
And
a
like the whole
story.
time,
But
because you're accustomed to like jump
yeah,
scares and all this, you're like,
yeah,
something's either going to be on the under the bed or as immediately soon as she comes up and looks around.
exactly. Like it's like, okay, are they going to scare you when she goes under the bed, or is it going to happen when the camera goes from the bed to her? Like
Yeah, and
you're trained to
they
believe
did the
that that's
best
what's going
thing
to happen.
possible, and they just strung it out as long as they could, and they don't even show you anything.
No, and that's the beauty of it. So
Yeah.
then the other sister gets involved. And she's like, "See, there's nothing here." And then she starts freaking out. She's like,
Yeah,
"It's
she
right
gets up and
behind
like
you."
she's saying there's something in the
And
corner behind the
mhm,
door, like where the door is, and it's that corner is so dark you really
yeah,
can't see anything there.
and you
So
expect
you're like,
something to
what
come
the
out of it. Like
yeah.
that's what
Whereas
I was
like
waiting for.
what I think of what you mentioned, Hereditary. At the end of Hereditary, whenever he goes down into that living room at the
And
very end of the
she's
movie, and then
yep,
like she comes out of that corner, the dark corner, and starts running at him.
yep.
That's exactly what I was thinking rewatching the
You're
movie.
you're waiting for the thing that she's looking at to show itself, like just to peek out of the shadows very subtly and freak you out.
Yeah.
But that it doesn't happen. It
Yeah.
cuts to the scream. Everyone runs up, and she's just flailing on the floor.
Well, you get the
And it's
door
just like,
slam.
oh, that's right. The
You
door
get
does slam
the
shut.
door just
Okay.
slams shut, and that's whenever you get the scream. Everybody
Yeah.
runs in, and
And you
then
still don't see what it is.
yeah,
You
yeah,
assume it's a witch, but like
yeah. And and we forgot to mention at the time when Ed and Lorraine Warren show up at the house, everybody's sleeping in the living room. At this point,
yeah.
they're like nobody's in the rooms. Everybody's sleeping together out in the living room. So I mean, that's pretty much how it is the rest of the movie. And like Ed and Lorraine Warren come and they stay with them. There's a part of the movie I really like because a lot of people complain about horror movies in between the scares, a lot of the build up, and there's a lot of like, and I think The Conjuring does a very good job of kind of developing a little bit of universe, a little bit of backstory where he says
Mhm.
where Ed's like kind of bonding with the father,
Yeah.
and he's kind of tells him like, yeah, she had an experience once where like she saw something, like they were doing an exorcism, and like
Mhm.
she like looked into like the dude's eyes or whatever, and she saw something,
Mhm.
and it's like it messed her up for a long time, and they were kind of hesitant to get back into doing whatever. So
Yeah.
you're like, oh, what happened? What did she see?
And even he's like, I didn't ask.
Yeah. He's like, well, what was it? And he's like, I didn't ask. It's those little things, man, that I like, where it's like, I don't know, just kind of like the bonding moment.
Yeah, they did a good job with the with the in between stuff because you know when things are about to go down, but everything at least in between, you do get this you get the sense that like the Warrens are trying to bond with these people, at least
Yeah.
trying to comfort them in a way. Like they kind of become a little bit part of the family, not just them, but like the sheriff and I forget the other guy's name, the guy that's running all the
The
equipment.
equipment. Yeah, they
But
start to come in. This movie is very great at building everything up to the very end.
mhm,
It doesn't throw everything all at you at
yeah,
once, you know. So yeah, that's when they bring like the policeman in, the camera, the guy that hooks up all the equipment, and they have like all the pretty much like little like motion
mhm.
sensors and all that, and tripwire set up around the house to like let them know, and bells on the doors.
I can't believe that policeman didn't die.
Yeah, right.
Like
There
that
really
was, I
wasn't
think
anybody that
Brittany
died
said
in
it.
the
Like
movie.
I forget what he
Nobody died.
said, but it was when he was being cocky, and Brittany's like, "Oh, he's gonna die."
Yeah, that's the thing. Like nobody dies in this
No
movie.
one dies,
Nobody dies in this movie. It's just straight scares, and
and that's
that's another
actually
thing that's cool
yeah.
about it.
Like you didn't need that
Yeah,
over the top killing or
yeah,
someone getting slashed open and a shock value kind of thing. It just
yeah.
you
And I
did
mean, yeah, I mean,
yeah.
he's the one that sees the stuff. Like there, you see like actual ghosts walking around at that
Hmm.
point. uh, they like, yeah, he runs into that ghost, and then like in the background of the one shot, you see the one like walk across like the
Yeah.
camera, and that's what sets off like the different cameras and all that. Yeah, and that's when I find the music box. If I'm pretty sure they try to find the girl.
Well, they were playing with the music box throughout the movie. They were
The
using it
girl
every
finds it
once in a while.
because she says she
Um,
starts talking to like the kid, the imaginary friend,
yeah,
and she has the music box, and that's when like Lorraine she sits down with the music box,
she tried. Yeah,
and that's it winds you up for another jump scare that
and it's not there.
it's not
Like,
there. It's not
mm,
there where you're like when she winds it up when you expect it to stop, you're like, what's gonna pop out? Nothing. Nothing. And that's
I
like,
just
oh, you got me again.
I still just keep thinking when we keep talking about jump scares, the one big jump scare that
It gets me every time, man. It gets me every time, and I know it's coming. And it's not even because of like it's the one
I
on
know
top
you
of the
said.
wardrobe. Whenever they're like, look, there's something there, and they're like they turn around and it just quick zooms, it quick snaps straight into like this
It's the
old lady
fastest zoom.
face just on top of that, just
She's just sitting up there,
just
like you said to me
And
before.
it's
It's
not
like
even that
in
she's
Hereditary
scary.
when
It's
she's
just
up in the.
how it just snaps in and then it just blasts that, jump scare music where I'm like, every time I'm like, huh. And I know it's coming.
It's funny because my reaction was totally different because I've heard you talk about that scene
Yeah.
before. So when I saw it, it was almost just like, haha, there it is.
Yeah, there it is. Where every time I watch it, I'm like,
It
huh.
just it didn't get me because I knew of it
You
and I
knew it was
didn't know when it
coming.
was gonna happen, and when I saw it, it was just like, there it is. Like,
During their, they set like the ghost set off all like the little lights and the motion sensors and
mm,
everything. While they're sitting there talking, the girl's hair starts like levitating, and then
yeah,
she just gets yanked up into
yep.
like she's floating, and then she's getting dragged around the room, thrown around, and that's whenever like it drags her all the way up the steps into the room, and that's whenever they go into the
Then,
like the wardrobe and they find like that little hidden crawl
yep.
space back there, and they see where the spot was where
They see where the music
the
box is
music
supposed
box
to be.
was.
Yeah.
Yep. And I mean there is another cool shot in the movie. I mean, this is just now we're just talking about parts because like you watched it like the other day. This is a
Like
movie I've seen
yesterday
a
or the
decent
day before.
amount, but I can only remember this. I remember the main plot, but I just don't remember where every certain part fits. But the one that's on the main poster that everybody can see now is the big ass tree in the backyard.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a part of it, I think it's when Ed and Lorraine, I think it's Ed and Lorraine outside, or it's Lorraine and one of the parents outside talking, and she's like, they died right here or whatever, and then it just like kind of zooms out and you just see the body hanging like right behind
it cuts
them.
the shot of the body hanging and stuff.
Yeah,
I really liked the whole outside, because it wasn't just the house. Like this place was, the whole property is just doomed.
doomed.
The lake, the tree, like I think they said it was like 200 acres worth of just people committing suicide and getting killed and all this stuff over like 400 or so.
While she's investigating inside of that little like hidden room, she falls through the floor.
Yep.
She's like in the basement, like looking around. She's on the floor, and then you like see like the body hanging, and then it just kind of like you see like it start turning, and the feet's like towards her, and then it just kind of beeline straight to her. And then she turns around, and then there's a scary face right there when she turns around.
That was the one jump scare that kind of got, because I don't like it was just creepy looking.
It was creepy looking, man.
That to me was the beginning of the end. Like that's where I feel like the events of the end of the movie started, like, because it was like once she was in the basement, once Lorraine was in the basement, then it's like that's when the witch just kind of like went, oh yeah, no, because Lorraine went to get out of the basement, her locket fell off, and then that's how the witch was able to get to her daughter through the locket somehow, and then she possessed
to
Annabelle.
Our second kind of our side story of the movie, which goes to Ed and Lorraine Warren's house, where, I mean, you saw it a little earlier in the movie. They kind of, Ed's getting interviewed by like some newspaper or whatever, and he's talking about like, oh yes, all of these are like little trophies we've taken from.
Can I just say, that can't be a good idea.
It can't be a good. Well, I mean, his reasoning is it's in the right hands, and it's somewhere that nobody will ever touch him or see him again.
Do you know what a better reasoning is? Fire. Like
yeah, but I guess then if it has the demon or whatever inside, then it would release it, I would suppose.
But I mean, now this dude knows how to do exorcisms.
Yeah.
So like, he's gained the power now. So.
But yeah, that goes into the second part of the story, which I think this is another pretty creepy part of the movie. That's like, it kind of gives, I wouldn't say gives me chills, but it's like, oh, this is very atmospheric. With the daughter that's in the house pretty much by herself. I didn't
like that because I thought something was gonna happen to her, and I didn't like it.
But yeah, it's very creepy. It's like storming outside, and it's very dark. And that's whenever like she's kind of getting like, she goes into the room. Oh, the room's open. And then she goes into like, she walks down the hallway into the other room, and like the rocking chair is moving.
Yeah.
Very creepy with the Annabelle doll on it.
And then like, well, then she screams, and then conveniently Ed and Lorraine are on their way home. She sees a vision of her in the lake, her daughter.
Yeah, when she's sitting there at the scene we were talking about, when she was sitting with the music box by the water, she's looking at the lake, and she sees her daughter in the water floating up.
Yeah.
And she's like,
and so she has this feeling that like she has to go home.
Yeah.
So when she gets home, and then of course like they got this girl out in like the last millisecond.
After that, at this point, the family's had enough. They're like, we're getting the fuck out of here. So they leave. They go and stay in a hotel, and
at this point, the mother should be completely possessed, I believe. Once they leave the house, the mother has met the witch, and the witch like did her thing.
Yeah, the mother's like sleeping. Yeah, the mom's like sleeping. And that's whenever that happens. Like that happens like right near whenever the bedsheet thing I was talking about. Because like that happens, and then Lorraine sees her up in the window.
Yeah.
And everything. And that's whenever she like gets attacked or whatever. And then she has like all the marks and stuff on her and everything. Yeah. Her face starting to get cut up. But that's when they get out of the house. They go to a hotel. I think the dad still goes out on work or whatever, and then he comes back, and they get to the hotel, or the cops get to the hotel, if I remember, and they're like, "Mom's gone, whatever."
Yep, Mom took two of the kids.
Mom took two of the kids, and then everybody's just, "Go to the house, rush to the house," and then they get to
Like we've talked about this. Like the mother is the most likely one to be possessed here, and you leave her alone with the kids.
Yeah,
Like
right. She's obviously been the
classic
target.
scary movie mistake.
And this is my only complaint about the movie.
Okay.
And I'm cool with the possession. I'm cool with all of this. The only part I did not like is the thousands of crows that are just flying around the house, smashing into the windows, smashing into the car. I feel like it was a little overkill. I
The
feel like,
movie turned into The Exorcism meets Birds.
yeah, I don't
Like,
know, like
at the
I
end.
don't know what that had to do with the exorcism. I don't know. They didn't really explain that from what I remember.
Well,
I just thought
the
it was very
birds
weird that they
were
had the birds.
yeah. In the beginning, when they first moved in, there were birds
The bird
hitting, but
snaps its neck on the house, if I remember
they
correctly.
didn't really quite explain why birds were attracted to the house and wanted to off
And then they
themselves.
just it was
Yeah.
like the how the locusts come during like the
They were like
apocalypse,
kamikazes. They were just like bombing.
flying into their car windows and
One
stuff.
got into the cellar.
Yeah, one got they're
Like,
flying through the cellar. But this is the end game of the movie.
yeah,
That's whenever they go there, they get the wife, they like tie her to a chair, and they're
yep,
like, all right, we can't get a priest to approve of exorcism. Ed's gonna do it. So Ed start and like she's creepy, man.
yeah.
Like she is full on like looking like Linda Blair kind of from The Exorcist at this point with all the cuts and stuff on her
She's
face.
got like yeah, she's
She's got those
completely messed
creepy
up.
eyes where it's all white except for just the little black dot in the middle.
Oh,
Um
and then they put the thing
oh
over her head,
yeah.
and she just like spews blood out and, like
Yeah,
under
and
the thing.
another cool part is that part where I think they cut the music at that point, and it's just like her slowly like lifting like the chair that she's on
Mm-hmm.
starts lifting, and she like vomits the blood, and then like the
Yep.
mask rips, and you can just see like
Yep.
her crazy face. That's a creepy part, but that's when
Yeah.
like shit starts getting hectic, starts flying around the room. You know, he's
Yeah.
doing the
That.
exorcism.
This is climax right here. Like
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
so
Uh,
much going on. Ed's trying to figure out how to do an exorcism,
yeah,
and
he's just
then
winging
like
it at this
they're
point.
looking for the other daughter at this point still too. The one's
Yeah,
trying to avoid kamikaze birds.
yeah.
Like
And then of course the mother gets loose. Knows
of
like
course.
they're like, "Oh, I think I found the daughter or whatever." And then she's like immediately bolts to wherever they set about. And like that's a pretty tense scene when they're like crawling under the house and she's just chasing like this crazy
Yep.
possessed woman is chasing this little girl. And then
Oh, and then
like,
right before that, I think is when she no, I think that's when she goes to leave the house. She bites the sheriff's neck.
"Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He didn't die, but
Yeah. Yeah."
he got what he got for being cocky.
I forgot about that entirely, dude.
He got bit by a witch.
I don't even know if you would call it if it was an exorcism at that point. They just pretty much convince her to like overcome the
Yeah,
demon.
it's almost like because yeah, he's doing the exorcism, and it's kind of not working. It's more so just like subduing her. It's not like actually
Yeah, and then
expelling the demon.
they
And then Lorraine is the one who says like,
think of the beach. Think of
yeah,
your like because
the whole beach thing, and then
Lorraine
she.
earlier in the movie asked her like, "What was one of your favorite memories with like or like what with your kids or
Mhm.
whatever?" And she tells her like they went to the beach. They took a beach trip before they moved in, like leading up to
Mhm.
the move in and everything. And they have like the picture from the beach trip, and that's pretty much like instead of the exorcism. I guess it makes her think of it. Kind of brings her back to reality. Like this is your place, this is your family, all that, and kind of helps her fight the demon from the inside. In a
Yeah.
way.
So it's like she kind of did her own exorcism from the inside out.
Mm-hmm. From the inside out. That's a
It was
perfect
more of an
way.
expulsion than an exorcism.
Yeah.
she she expelled her own demon. Yeah, that's crazy though. I mean, I'm sure it was a team effort.
And then it kind of cuts to back to the Warrens' little room
Yes.
with all the trinkets, and then it kind of
And he
zooms in
places
on
yeah.
the music. He puts the music box in there, and then it starts playing, and
It ends with
you think there's gonna be another jump scare.
nope.
Nope. There's
Credits.
not. It's just credits. And like I gotta give him credit. There's so many times in that movie where it's like, all right, it's coming, and there's like, nope, we're saving it. And that's what I respect the most. And I think that's
Mhm.
what they don't really do well with the rest of the movies. I don't
Like they
think
actually go
they
through
go
with the jump
they
scare.
just go through with the jump scares and the rest, especially Insidious. Insidious is the worst like oh my, it's just nothing but jump scares, pretty much. But yeah, that's what I love so much about The Conjuring 1, and that's why I think it's like the best of those movies, and I think it's a movie that's going to hold up for a long time. I think this is going to be like how, oh, I don't want to put it up there with like the classics, but this, I can see this one being a movie people are talking about for years and years and years, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's already almost 10 years old.
Yeah,
I mean,
and it still
8 years old at this point.
yeah, and it still gets brought up as like if you go online and look up like top horror movies, this is one of them that's up there. It's recommended. So I mean, this is definitely one of my like. I recently watched it last year. I watched it a couple of times recently because I watched it for Halloween last year. It's a great movie, man. I don't really have too many complaints other than just them birds, man. That's the only thing I have to complain about. Other than that,
and you're
really,
usually for the birds.
Usually for the birds.
You're not
in this movie. But overall, I think it's a great movie. It's very well paced. The scares are great. You know, they kind of like lure you on. You know, they make you wait for it, for the big scares, and it's paced well. It doesn't. There's not a lot of like breathing room in between.
Yeah, they kind of go through things pretty quickly, and that was my favorite part. Was it is actually it's very well paced. There's, you know, right when I'm at the point where I'm like, all right, when are we going to get started? It gets started. Yeah. And then it's like, you know, when are we going to get to the end here? They get right to it. Like
and the characters are well developed. They're characters you like too. That too. And that's the hardest part about horror movies is getting characters you like and care about, that you know what's happening to them. You know?
Yeah, because I mean, most of the time what happens is you get introduced to a small group of main characters, and then there's some side characters. You know, those side characters they're going.
Yeah.
But like, to actually care about the main characters, and they had a ton of characters in this movie. I mean, you had a family of like 5 girls, the mother and daughter. Then you introduce the Warrens, and then their little 2-person crew of a sheriff, and I mean that's like 10 people you kind of get invested in. I mean that's a good bit of people.
Yeah, you're definitely gonna have to kind of watch the other two. I definitely recommend 2 and 3 just because, you know, that's the main Conjuring series. I don't really know too much about the spin-offs, so I mean I can't really. I've only seen like The Nun and one of the other ones. I don't even remember what it was. It was kind of forgettable. But overall, like what would you rate this movie like out of a 10?
Out of 10? I don't know. I mean, I'm also not super. I haven't watched too many movies in the scope of things. I mean, in general, I've watched a ton of movies, but like, I mean, I don't want to give it like a 10. I'd say like a 7.5.
Okay,
I mean,
that's fair.
And movie wise, if you're talking horror movie, I'd give it like 8 or 9.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of. Okay. I was saying as like a horror movie. As like a horror movie, I'm giving it like an 8, 8.5. Yeah. I mean, as a regular movie, I would give it an 8 too.
Okay. Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. Like, as a regular movie, I probably wouldn't enjoy it as much, but watching it as a horror movie, I'm like, oh, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Like it.
Yeah, very solid movie, man. I recommend it to everybody. It's a very good. If you haven't watched it, turn off all the lights tonight and just sit down on the couch, get a bowl of popcorn, and watch The Conjuring, man. It's a great movie. I highly recommend it.
Real quick, I had a fact for you.
Yeah.
Before we. One I actually just see because I'm looking at the Wikipedia page. It came out on my birthday in 2019 or in 2013.
Oh, nice.
That was weird. Yeah, this movie profited. It only had a 20 million. Had a budget of 20 million, and it made 319.5.
Yeah,
million.
It was a mega hit when it came out, man.
And
I remember seeing it in theaters.
It was filmed in 38 days.
Jeez, damn.
Sequentially, at that. Each scene was filmed
in order
in 38 days. That's like a month that you cranked out a movie and it made $320 million. There are times where it makes sense to film an earlier scene later in the filming, but in this, there's really no reason to. They just cranked this thing out in a month, and
that's dope though. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, great movie, man. Conjuring, highly recommend it. What about you, Evan?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, and I haven't watched too many horror movies, so I mean, my opinion is nearly not as. I mean, it doesn't hold its own as much as yours, but I say watch it.
Yeah,
definitely.
definitely watch it. And until we see you next time, make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to go check out all of our other content on the channel. We got a ton of content for you to watch. So go make sure to watch all of that. Make sure to go follow us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Squad Pod Sports and at Squad Pod YouTube. And we'll see everybody next time.
Bye.